Travels of the Ellis Arbor is a TTRPG story set in the world of Bastion using the Vagrant Sun campaign setting. Tune in for episode 39, Reaching. A barrage of winds and turbulent pressure as Arcana swirled around Carpathian. Waves of energy bombarding the catwalks above and sending the crowd of rogues into defensive positions. Not enough to sway the tides of battle, but enough for the crew of the Ellis Arbor to bring their dance of death. Cackling in reply, their leader commanded the rogues to fire, sending a hail of bullets across the mill interior. Shattered glass and cracked wood, screams of pleasure as they delighted in the bloodbath. But Darian was far too cunning to be caught in the crossfire. They silently maintained their cover and awaited the perfect moment to strike. Edward took the time afforded to him while on the road to improve upon the design of his weapon. While a diamond was placed within the articulated chamber, he could fire a ray of electricity like a bullet from a gun. However, articulating it just so would allow the arc to bend between metal obstacles, electrifying metal objects and passing it through a multitude of materials. Using this moment behind cover to his advantage, he turned the gemstone by half, primed his weapon, and awaited Darian's command. A cacophony of ear-splitting moments later, and the first of the pistols clicked, their barrels empty. Now, to retaliate.
Pick your targets! Fire!
Edward spun on his knee, turning upward toward the furthest catwalk. A shot fired from his rifle as a beam of white-hot electricity caught the hand railing. In a flash, the superheated air began to spark. Each rogue holding a pistol in their hands felt a searing pain in their palms, many simply throwing them into the air and out of reach. For those still wielding hand weapons, the arc caught the tips of their blades and the edges of hand axes, sparking aggressively and causing the remaining assailants to recoil. Next was the wizard. As more rogues on the floor around him began to charge their position, Carpathian stepped to his full height and growled menacingly. A firm stamp of his staff as the crystals that adorned it lit in a violent glow. Then, like the roar of a prowling dragon, he breathed fire from the end of his staff into the rogues on the far side. They recoiled in fear and pain, feeling the heat on their skin and burning sensations like a furnace upon them. Their leader, as it seemed, would not have it. Screaming bloody murder, he turned his blade upon Carpathian, running headlong into his unprotected back. Little did he know, the captain was ready to receive him. The charred blade outstretched, both his torso and his legs were unguarded. His ruthless riposte caught him out of focus. He failed to see Darian vault into his trajectory, turning his hammer in hand and heaving it directly into the masked rogue's chest. He'd revealed those sparkling blue gemstones. Perhaps shattering them would cause unmitigated damage. Darian knew that all he required was to kill their leader. Subdue them if he must, but his target must be this mad, mask-clad figure. What the captain hadn't anticipated occurred almost as swiftly as their defensive maneuver. Even from across the chamber, the crew could hear the distinct sound of whirring and the crackle of energy. The bluish gemstones embedded on the masked figure's torso were magical. Powerful enough strikes would surely be enough to sunder him and the magic within. But with a mighty crack, Darian was proven overwhelmingly incorrect. Like a holy spark of retribution, lightning exploded from the gemstones, sending waves of energy backward through the hammer. With a cry of pain, Darian swung backward from the strike, allowing his weapon to scatter on the ground behind him, and he fell backward onto the stone, hard enough to feel it crack and break under the weight of his fall. A second flash fell immediately after as the lightning from Edward's gun began to warble. It unraveled and spiraled back toward the floor, though this time it entirely ignored Ed and his weapon, arcing straight toward the stones that embedded upon the figure's chest. They glowed bright enough to shine like a miniature star, crackling again until the energy was siphoned away. In barely a few seconds, the figure held firm against the assault, and Darian lay bare, disarmed at his feet. No, don't be so hasty as to think you have all the tricks. He leaned down and grabbed Darian's collar. With alarming strength, he attempted to hoist the captain to his feet, however hard Darian strained against it. I get it, I really do. You thought you'd use that sabotage to your advantage and prove yourself our equal or better. You didn't really think I'd take such wanderers of esteem for granted, did you? How foolish do you think I am? Even as the rogue's unhinged reply continued, Darian could feel the heat exuding from each gemstone. The vibrant crackle of energy, the warm hum of an electrified surface. Certainly, they'd not yet seen the full extent of the masked figure's power. And for a moment, his confidence wavered as he watched Edward out of the corner of his eye. Let me show you what we've been working on, shall I? Maybe it'll show you how futile your efforts really are. He raised his free hand towards his face, his mask, and as it passed by the glowing stones, it arced along his fingertips, shrouding them in thunderous lightning energy. And as he clenched his fist, sparks arced along Darian's jacket between each metal button and just barely grazing the jewelry that adorned his neck and ears. For a moment, Darian closed his eyes, listening and waiting. This is the power that your friend, Goblin, helped us to achieve. Now, if you know him like I know him, I'm pretty certain that your friend has been able to turn me into a kind of hybrid sorcerer. Finally, magic isn't just owned by the magical races. It's not just for the Eladrin and the Meladrin to play with powers they don't understand. No, now it's our turn. Darian's eyes snapped open. Oh, and you understand it, do you? I understand one thing. The reaching arms of our organization stretch far and wide. With a power like this, Adar, at my command, there's nothing that won't bow before us, least of all you. Pride, malice, unhinged fury. To some men, it is an asset. To others, it is a curse. For Darian, Edward, Moore, and Carpathian, it was an opportunity. There are powers beyond you and I that taught me to kneel. They seek my fealty with more forceful means than you can muster. In the shadow of this standoff, Moore's enraged form began to swell. So enraptured in his monologue, the masked rogue had failed to notice. So too did the remaining enemy forces rally, finding their pistols and loading what they could into their empty chambers. What makes you think you're any different? After all, I'm not on my knees just yet. Not only had the masked rogue failed to notice Moore's approach, but also the quick-fingered captain drawing his pistol and forcing the barrel straight into his abdomen. Travels of the Ellis Arbor is made possible by the generous support of our subscribers, followers, and most notably, our patrons. Special thanks to the new and existing patrons, including Jared Rose, Rob Jenkin, AJ Torres, Jade Ranson, Reece Shelmadine, Nathan Ebley, and Alex von Hostred. Please subscribe, give a like or a comment, follow us on Twitter, and stay tuned for the next episode. Make sure to follow us here on YouTube, on Spotify, and on twitch.tv/lonomy. Don't forget, take care of each other.